Okay, we're going to begin with the story, and we're going to go through some insights. We're not going to go through the whole story, we're just going to mention some interesting pointers which may not be so well known. There are a number of historical records for the Chanukah story. Interestingly, the classical Jewish sources is not one of them. The Gemara that deals with the Chanukah miracle, that deals with the Chanukah laws in length in Shabbos, Tractate Shabbos, starting from page 21, 22, for a few pages, doesn't really go into the depths of the story. It mentions a few lines about the story, but doesn't give us all the dramatic and detailed battles and victories. It just says that they tried to kill us, we won, so we eat. No, that's not joking.
Where are the donuts?
It doesn't usually happen that way. You think they'd elaborate a little more.
So we don't find it neither in the Medrash and neither in the not Babylonian Talmud, not the Jerusalem Talmud, and even the stories that have been connected to Chanukah, which are found in these classical sources, it's not written when they actually occurred. So, for example, the story of Hannah and the 7 sons is widely accepted, even though historically we don't really have evidence for that it happened during the period of the Chanukah story. That story is recorded in length, in detail, in the Gemara in Gittin. The Gemara in Gittin does not mention, oh, by the way, this happened during Chanukah, and there will have another historical event to note of the acts of, Antiochus, etc., and the Mesiras Nefesh, the utter dedication, giving up of their lives that we had to do at that time. So we're really left aloof of information in the Talmud, but what we do have is a very classical and accepted Jewish source, which is called Megillas Antiochus. Megillas Antiochus is the most authentic Jewish source on the Chanukah miracle. When I emphasize authentic Jewish source, because we have other sources as well, such as Josephus. Josephus, while he was seemingly a good guy, he wrote an amazing and very famous work, the Book of Josephus. Everyone ever read through the whole thing? It's like over 1,000 pages. It's extremely long. It doesn't focus, of course, solely on the Chanukah miracle. The Chanukah miracle was a little bit before his time. He's basing it on previous historians. But he does give a number of detailed chapters on the Chanukah story. I will just mention that, as historians point out, Josephus' work has to be taken with a little bit of salt. And as I heard from one historian, if he was in my class, he would have gotten an F for basically exaggeration and copycatting other people's works. And
Plagiarism.
Plagiarism, thank you. Plagiarism, yeah. Okay. We also have another source, which is in great detail, called the Book of Hashmonaim, or the Book of the Maccabees. That also, we have a few volumes. That's mainly, it existed in times of the Talmud, it existed even in times of the Mishnah. We don't know exactly when it was written, but it most likely was written in close to the story, close to the occurrence of the story of the Chanukah miracle. It's more considered Sefarim Chitzayim, or external books, which you don't really rely upon so much. So our main authentic source is going to be Megillas Antiochus. Does everyone have this Megillah? Does everyone have access to it? It's not a very long Megillah. It's not like Megillas Esther. It never made it to become part of the 24 books. And one of the reasons for that is that Anshe Knesset HaGedolah, which are formally in charge of instituting what becomes part of the 24 books of Tanakh, were no longer in existence at the time of the Chanukah miracle. So Megillas Antiochus, although authentic, has never become part of the official part of Tanakh. In the story written in Megillas Antiochus, we find, it's printed, by the way, today you can buy it on its own, but just be aware, the original Megillas Antiochus is not very long. It's maybe 10 pages long. So if you're buying a book of 150 pages called Megillas Antiochus, it's commentary, additions, and unfortunately we also have people who have called it Megillas Antiochus and then added many other stories from other sources and basically completely altered what the original Megillas Antiochus was. so we don't, again, we lose that authentic Jewish source when somebody added a whole bunch of information to the original text. But the original has been printed throughout the generations together with another Masechta called, it's a Masechta that deals with the Tanesim, the various fasts, Megillas Tainus it's called. It deals with the various fast days the Jewish people used to keep since the temple era. Most of these are already extinct, but at the end of that book, which is about 2,000 years old, they also had an addendum, which was a Megillas Antiochus. There are communities that are accustomed to read Megillas Antiochus, just like they read Megillas Esther. They don't say a bracha, and the scribes don't write it they don't write it as a Megillah. But there are communities, according to Rishonim, that they would read this Megillah in public to the congregation, with a nigun, for their congregation. I don't know any community who does this today, but the Rishonim definitely describe this as something that happened back then, once again, without a bracha. Who wrote it and when it was written, we don't exactly know. What we do know is that there is quite a lot of evidence to point that it was written at the times of Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, or prior, even at the time that the story took place by the children of Matisyahu. That's how some authorities learned it was written by them. If Sadiq was of that opinion, it was written by the children of Matisyahu. The Rebbe points out a question of you couldn't find a better name? Megillas Matisyahu, Megillas Yehuda, Megillas Chashmonai. What are you, Shem Rishayim Yirkov? What are you mentioning? What are you mentioning Antiochus for? Megillah calling the Megillah after an evil man, a crazy man, as he was known as Epiphanes, right? As a Meshugana. And now it turns. So the Rebbe explains that the whole idea of Chanukah and the Chanukah miracle is what? Is transforming the outside into light. The Rishus Harabim, the places which is full of klipas and evil, that even they should be turned to light. That even the Greeks, which represented intellectualism, that even that should be penetrated with godliness, should be penetrated with understanding of godliness. So it's the exact opposite of Antiochus, and so therefore we call Megillas Antiochus. So this is how we changed, and we turned over the representation of the Greek philosophy into godliness and Judaism. The Chanukah story took place in the times of as we know, the Second Temple. It says in Megillas Antiochus it took place 213 years into the reign of the Second Temple. The Second Temple was around 420 years. So about, almost exactly half, close to halfway through, that's when this story took place, in the middle of the reign of the Second Temple. We don't know the exact Hebrew or English corresponding date to that, because we're not exactly sure when the Second Temple was built, the exact date, but it was anywhere between 176 years before the Common Era to 140 years before the Common Era. That's where this story happened. Okay, so now we're going to give in this book, by the way, we have the translated version of Megillas Antiochus. So here you can get the pure adulterated version. It's a translation. It's a free translation, meaning it's not exactly to the T to the word, but it's, I think, one of the closest to the original that you can find, the translation. And everything else is just added in other places, all the other addition and midrashim. We're just going to point out a few ideas that aren't so well known. So it all began with, of course, as we know, Antiochus, who became ruler over the Greek kingdom, which ruled. The Romans were already around back then, but they were very small. They were quite irrelevant in worldly affairs at this time until the Greek kingdom basically disappeared, and then the Roman kingdom took over. But they were pretty much on the forefront of, they were like the United Kingdom of the previous century. And so Antiochus, it also began with him taking over Jerusalem and putting in what we can call puppet rulers. He had rulers put in who were all Hellenists, who believed in their philosophy of Greek mythology, and to eradicate Jewish practice. The first thing, mitzvahs that as we know, and this is the source for it, that they decreed against were Shabbos, Reish Chodesh, and Bris Milah. These were the first mitzvahs that Antiochus and his henchmen decreed against doing. He sent a general called Nicanor, not to be confused with a different Nicanor. There were, I guess, many generals called Nicanor. So he sent a general called Nicanor to overthrow Jerusalem in the battle that I just spoke about earlier. And he did. He did overthrow it, and he brought idols into the Beis HaMikdash. He brought swines into the altar. He did all these terrible things and offered its blood into the Holy of Holies. This was Nicanor, the Greek, but let's not forget there were many, many Hellenist Jews at this time, because Antiochus was not looking to destroy nations, to destroy people. He was looking to make the whole world become Hellenists, become Greeks, to follow Greek culture. He wasn't interested in killing Jews. He was interested in killing their religion, killing their culture, killing their practices. And unfortunately, many Yidden, went to the other side, and they became Hellenists, to the point that Mepharshim write that majority of Jews at that time actually Hellenized. The Chashmonaim, the Yehuda, Matisyahu, etc., they were the minority of the minority. Jews were minority amongst the nations, the Goyim, and amongst Yidden, they were the minority amongst Jews. They were even when we read about the battle, it says that there were 1,000 warriors with Matisyahu. Where's all the hundreds of thousands and millions of Jews? They were on the other side. Many of them were on the other side. They became Hellenists. The high priest at that time had purchased his position of high priest, and he was a Hellenist. This is later on. But in the beginning, the high priest was Yochanan, the son of Matisyahu, Kohen Gadol. This is, from what it seems like that the order was Matisyahu, Kohen Gadol, then Yochanan, who became Kohen Gadol, and then afterwards he had a son, Matisyahu, and that Matisyahu had 5 sons. So do not confuse the original Matisyahu with the later Matisyahu. So in any event, this Matisyahu, this Yochanan Kohen Gadol, who was the high priest at the time, he was known as basically still faithful to Judaism as the representing Jewish leader of those who remained faithful and didn't go over to the Hellenist side. And if he could make peace with Nicanor, meaning if he would capitulate to Nicanor, that would basically end the opposition. And Nicanor, we can read how the story went over here.
Isn't Nicanor one of the gates of the...
I said, there's different Nicanors. In history in general, you have many repeated names, and that's where we get so confused. But didn't he live 3,000 years before what you're saying? Yeah, same name, different guy. Yeah. So this is a different Nicanor. This is a Greek Nicanor. There were a few Nicanors. It says like this: Yochanan proceeded after forming a sword to come to the gates of the king in Jerusalem. This is referring to Nicanor. Oh, okay, thank you. He called to the guards and said to them, I am Yochanan, the son of Matisyahu. I have come to be seen by Nicanor. The guards proceeded to inform Nicanor of his arrival and said, the high priest of the Jews is standing by the entrance to greet you. Nicanor acquiesced to this request and told the guards to let him enter. Yochanan was brought before Nicanor and was told by Nicanor, you are one of the rebels which have rebelled against the king and do not desire peace with the king. Yochanan answered, my master, this is true. I have now come before you as I decided to do tshuva. I'm becoming about tshuva. I am now, accepting the king Antiochus' reign over me.
Is that about tshuva?
No, in their sense.
I'm just checking if I'm understanding.
Here, in modern Hebrew, they call it choser b'she'elah. I don't know why, but that's how they call it in modern Hebrew.
By another term, hypocrisy.
Hypocrisy. Nicanor retorted. Exclaimed back to Yochanan, if so, that you will obey my will, then take a swine, meaning prove yourself, take a pig and slaughter it on the mizbeach for idolatry. And if you do so, I will reward you by garbing you with the kingly garments and letting you ride on my horse. This is big, guys. I'm riding his horse. Like one of the king's beloved friends. Upon Yochanan hearing the reply, he answered him, I'm afraid to do as you request in front of others, as the Kohanim were known as zealots, they'll kill spot. My brethren the Jews will hear about this, they'll stone me. So please remove all your men from here, and I will do it in private, only in front of you. Nicanor bought the bait and had everyone leave. Yochanan the son of Matisyahu raised his eyes to the heavens and prayed before God. My God and the God of my forefathers, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, please do not hand me into the hands of this uncircumcised one. As if he kills me, he will boast that his false deities gave me into his hands. At that moment, Yochanan took 3 steps forward and entered the sword into the heart of Nicanor and threw his corpse onto the floor of the Azara in front of God. He then said a second prayer, Hashem, please do not view my actions as sinful that I have murdered a man in a holy place. Please hand over all of our enemies into our hands. And now it says something quite interesting. Yochanan, the son of Matisyahu, then proceeded to battle the enemy, Greek nation, and he killed many of them. On that day he killed, this is the exact number written in Megillah Antiochus, 772,000 men.
Oh, by himself?
Well, maybe he had a few helpers.
It must have been 700.
But what's so strange about this number is why couldn't it have just been 770,000 men?
Yeah, really.
It would have been so much more symbolic, no? 770,000 men. That was a joke.
Maybe they didn't count well.
That was a joke. It's a large number. It sounds almost like exaggerated. This is the number that's written there. Okay, and then it finishes and says when he returned. I don't know what it means. He returned maybe to Jerusalem. I'm not sure what this means. Where he returned to. He built a monument for his name. This is referring to Yochanan, the son of Matisyahu. And it was called Maccabee who kills the strong. This is our first and only reference of the term Maccabee that we know of. Okay, that Maccabee here is basically has some connection with the strong. He called the monument Maccabee, and this is where the term Maccabee is rooted in. It's from Megillah Antiochus. We do find another mention of the term Maccabee, and that's from the book of Josephus. So let me just make this clear. In Jewish sources, the only source we have of the term Maccabee is what I just read. And it doesn't. And what it's saying is that they called a monument the name Maccabee, referring to the strong one, who is strong, who kills the strong. In Josephus, however, he explains that he brings this down as well, and he writes, "Mi kamaycha b'kelim Hashem," who is like unto thee, O God. That's the Rashi Tevis for the word Maccabee. Mi kamaycha b'kelim Hashem. So this is it stands for that they're basically sanctifying God and giving over all of their victories to the power of Hashem, not taking for themselves. Also in one of the Sifrei Chitzayim, this is what is written. But again, it's this interpretation that we all know of today. Someone asks you, what does Maccabee stand for? Hashem. It's not found in the classical Jewish sources. The only thing that I could merit Josephus with is, since we've already said he got an F in school for plagiarism, most likely he did not say this on his own. This was written already somewhere else, much older than him, and therefore he's just relaying to us what it was accepted, the term Maccabee in previous times. I hope he doesn't get offended, Josephus. I didn't give him the F. Okay. Nicanor's dead. The battle yet isn't over. So basically, this is our first highlight. The Chanukah miracle didn't happen overnight. It wasn't like a few skirmish wars, and that's it, guys. We're done with them. It took at least 2 to 3 years. We know for a fact, historically, it took at least 2 to 3 years, the whole battle. And what it seems like here is that in the very beginning, we had the rebellion started off by Yochanan, the son of Matisyahu, who killed Nicanor. And then a new general came, whose name was? Anyone know his name? Bagram, or Bigram. Bigram.
What's his name?
Beis Gimel Reish Mem. I don't know if they pronounced it Bagram, or Bigram, or Begram. Something of the sort.
His name has not endured.
Oh. So then Begram was sent, and now we're already moving on to the next generation, or it could be they lived at the same time, but this is already the son of Yochanan, Matisyahu, and Matisyahu had 5 sons. That's what it seems like, okay? Of course, Antiochus was very sad that his prize general was killed. He sent this new Rasha Bagram to fight. They reinstituted the prohibitions against Shabbos, Rish Chodesh, and Milah, and then they were unfortunately very successful in killing many Jews. One story, which is well known, which is recorded in Megillah Antiochus, is that there were a group of 1,000 men and women who were hiding in a cave. It doesn't say which cave, but they were hiding in a cave, and Bagram came there with the soldiers, and he opened up the cave and he told them, listen, if you come out, we set up for you a beautiful, lavish tables of foods. We have pork chops, we have shrimp, we have all these delicious foods, barbecued right off the fire, and we have very tasty wines aged from the times of the first Beis Hamikdash. Come out and enjoy yourselves, and if you don't, we're going to kill you all. And they refused. They had Mesiras Nefesh. They refused to come out. They threw rocks, knocked all the food down, and basically the Greeks, the Bagram and his men, they lit a fire by the cave, and that's how they killed all 1,000 people inside. Mm-hmm. The Megillah then goes into explaining the different skirmish warfares that were fought by Matisyahu and his 5 sons. And of course we know, that's well known, that they, battle after battle, they were very successful, even though they were very few, maximum 1,000 in number, or a few thousand in number amongst many mountainous areas. They managed to annihilate hundreds of thousands of the Greek forces. The story of Modi'in is not recorded in Megillas Antiochus, like was the story of Eliezer being ordered to eat pork, and Hanan and her 7 sons are not recorded in Megillas Antiochus. The story of Yehudis is not recorded in Megillas Antiochus, but that has very clear Jewish sources. It's written about in Rishonim, it's written about in Paiskim. In fact, we have a custom that we do till today in Chanukah because of this, and that is eating dairy, eating milchiks. We eat milchiks, dairy foods, on Chanukah to commemorate what Yehudis did to the, I guess this was another general. How many generals were killed here? I guess this was another one. We had Bagram. Bagram was not killed. We know Bagram was not killed by Yehudis. Hanifornis. So where was he?
That was Yehudis, right? She killed him?
I don't know the name. I didn't write the name here, but it sounds familiar. So we don't. We don't. As in many times in history, we don't really know when everything chronologically happened until you have a historian that writes it down, and whether he's correct or not correct, then he just gives that over to the next generation. Everyone says it as if it's fact. We will never know when these stories happen. We do know there is a story that happened with Yehudis killing the general. Did this happen before Nikanor? Did this happen after Bigram? Was this an intermediate between? We don't know. We don't have that information. But we do know that she was the daughter of Yechanan Kain Gadol, seemingly the same Yechanan Kain Gadol that we spoke of before, and meaning that she would be the sister of Matisyahu, if this is correct. Again, this is all speculative. We don't know for a fact. But there were clearly 3 generals killed. We had Nikanor killed by Yechanan Kain Gadol. We had Bigram, who were killed by Bigram. Eventually, it says in Megillas Antiochus that the Jewish people captured him and burnt him alive. So he was not killed by Yehudis. So there was another one. Okay, I think we're done here with the story. We're going to start going into some insights in the Halachos. So after all of these events and all the drama, what is exactly... Oh, by the way, this is a picture of one of the oldest Megillas Antiochus that we have today available. I mean, this is not the original, obviously. This is a picture of the original. That's how it looks.
You said 10 pages. You said 10 pages.
Well, the whole thing's about 10 pages, yeah.
And what is that?
This is just the first. It's just the beginning. Yeah. Just to see what it looked like. Okay. So what is Chanukah celebrating? What is the commemoration? I mean, it sounds like a very silly question. You need to just speak a month what the commemoration was. So it's funny because if you ask most people, what is Chanukah celebrating, they will all tell you, of course, they came into the temple, found a flask of oil, and it lasted for 8 days. Now, the funny thing is that Meseches, Megillah Antiochus, mentioned nothing of that. We didn't read any such story. It doesn't say it there. It only talks about a miraculous victory that Hashem handed over many in the hands of few. So in truth, we find 3 different reasons, and they're not competitive, they're enhancing each other, they complement each other, for why we celebrate Chanukah. There's 3 reasons, and for all these 3 reasons we celebrate Chanukah. One reason is, as we read from Megillas Antiochus, the fact that we won this battle. First of all, that we weren't exterminated as Jewish people, that our culture, our religion, our connection with God, with the Eibishter, was not eradicated. That's the biggest celebration that we have to have, not that some oil lasted for more than 1 day. That sounds extremely secondary and extremely petty in comparison to the significance of the victory of what happened. Let's not forget, today, if our candles last for 8 days, we make a big deal about it. Back then, in Beis Hamikdash time, nobody even talked about these miracles. It wouldn't even make the paper. This was like old news. Miracles happen left and right, all over the place. Ner Maravi of the menorah itself was a light, a flame that never went out. So the Chanukah miracle happened every single day, for years, for hundreds of years in the first temple, and maybe it happened in the second temple, I don't know. But in other words, it can't just be, we cannot accept that the sages would make a holiday simply because oil lasted for 8 days. It can only be that the oil lasting for 8 days represents something deeply symbolic, and it's that symbolism that we are celebrating. So that's in truth what it is. The celebration of Chanukah is we're celebrating the overcoming of Jewish culture over Greek culture. And we say Jewish culture, we don't just mean, that you can keep Shabbos and do mitzvahs and learn Torah, but that it's connected with God. As the Rabbi points out, that the Greeks, even though ideally they wanted to Hellenize people, they were also okay if you would go to university and learn Talmud and learn Bible studies. Just don't mention God. Don't talk about Him. I think I mentioned this once. It was once at a shir for Baal Teshuvas. Well, in Meretz Hashem they will become Baal Teshuvas in the shir. That's the type of shir that it was. And somebody got up and he said in front of the whole crowd, to the rabbi, why do you keep mentioning God? Just say whatever you want. Every sentence you're mentioning HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu was in Hebrew. Just stop mentioning HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the person said, Bezrat Hashem, I'll try. So this was the Greeks. They didn't mind. You want to keep Pesach. Just don't enter God into it. Don't have anything to do with God. And the idea of Matisyahu standing up and his children and all the Jews that were aligned with him, standing up to this pressure and fighting back, was not just representing, as some people want to secularize the holiday into, Jewish independence, that Jews became independent and we fought the Greeks and got back control and sovereignty of the land of Israel. That's a completely secularization or Hellenization of the Chanukah story. The Chanukah story was about people not willing to budge from their connection with God and standing up and fighting for Hashem and not allowing people to remove the name of Hashem from the Torah and from the mitzvahs and from Jewish culture. Not just that we retain Jewish culture, but that the Jewish culture is retained for the sake of our religion with Hashem, with God. And this is represented and is symbolic in the oil. What is oil? Oil stands above all other liquids, floats over water. And water and oil is the essence of everything. It's the essence of all matters. In Chassidus it's explained that oil represents the inner dimensions of Torah, representing the inner dimensions of a Jewish soul, representing the inner aspects of God. That all these three are connected. As Isaiah says, Sasim de Kutshabrichu, Eskashu besasim de Reis, Eskashu besasim de Yisrael. That the hidden aspects of the Jewish people, the root of the soul of the Jewish people is connected with the essence of the Eibishter, and this is represented in the oil. And that's why it's not because of the miracle that they make such a big deal out of it, but because of what the miracle represented in those times where the Greeks were trying to defile, were trying to remove God from religion, and we were successful in battling that from happening. And this also explains, the Rebbe points out, another interesting point, that in truth, from the letter of the law, since everybody was impure, it was permitted to light the menorah in the temple, even though you have impure oil. You didn't need pure oil. It wasn't a necessity. We would have lit in the menorah regardless. The menorah would have been lit regardless of what type of oil they found. Impure oil, pure oil, we would have lit in the menorah. So why do we make such a big deal? Oh, we're able to light them in there. We would have lit in regardless. The idea is we're able to light it with pure oil. This shows that the purity of Judaism remained and retained in its pure state. It didn't become tainted with turning Judaism into just a tradition, a culture, a way of life, and do me a favor, keep God out of it. No, it's all about God. God is embedded in every part of the Jewish religion, and its purity remained intact. The third aspect that's recorded, by the way, the miracle of the oil, although not recorded in Megillas Tainus, is what is discussed in Tractate Shabbos. The Gemara in Shabbos does record this whole miracle in its introduction and asks, "My Chanukah, what is Chanukah?" Meaning, what happened? And it goes through the war a little bit, a few sentences, and then it discusses the miracle of the oil. So that is clearly, from Jewish sources, 100%. That definitely did happen. We weren't negating that. We're just saying that we can't view that as the only reason for the celebration. There's a third reason brought down why we celebrate Chanukah, and again, they're complementary to each other, and that is that the dedication of the temple. Whenever the temple is rededicated, we have a celebratory day. We know we did this in the times of Shlomo HaMelech, when the temple was dedicated on Yom Kippur. We all ate and drank on Yom Kippur. We had big festive meals, lavish tables with delicious kosher food on Yom Kippur. So, since the temple was rededicated when the Hashmonaim made their way in, therefore, we go ahead and they made an institution to celebrate Chanukah. So we have all these three reasons of the celebration. And we'll see some halachic ramifications between them as we go through different halachos today. The term Chanukah, the name of the holiday Chanukah, has three different meanings that are brought down. One is that Chanukah, they rested on the 25th. They fought till the 25th and they rested on that day. This is only according to some Rishonim, because some Rishonim actually hold that no, they rested on the 24th, meaning the battle finished already the 24th, not the 25th. It's a machlekes. It's a machlekes amongst Rishonim when the battle was over. Was it over Chanukah or Erev Chanukah? So was Chanukah a full day of rest, the first day, or was it only you worked until the end of the day, and at the end of the day we won? So that's a dispute. So those who say that that it already ended on Chav Daled, so they say they rested on Chafei. Chafei was already a full day of rest. Others say the Chanukah is going on, the Chanukah Samizbeach, from the word of inauguration, what we mentioned earlier, the third reason of celebration. That on this day we had the inauguration. It's brought down that originally the Mishkan in the times of Moshe Rabbeinu was complete on Chaf Hei Kislev. But based on a directive from Hashem, the inauguration didn't actually happen until the 1st of Nisan. So Chaf Hei Kislev was very upset, complained to Hashem, why does my date on which the tabernacle was finished on not receive the inauguration? So Hashem said, don't worry, you'll get payback later on, and that was the Chanukah story. So from this wording, Chanukah is going on Chanukah Samizbeach, the rededication of the altar of the temple. Another, the Abu Daram writes, Rishon, that the name Chanukah stands for the words Ches Neiris Halacha Kebeis Hillel. It's an abbreviation of 8 candles, and we really like this, meaning that we light 8 candles throughout Chanukah at the end. And how do we do it? Like Beis Hillel says, we first start off with 1 and make our way up, not like Beis Shammai. Okay, we're going to do some skipping. We're going to go. I'm going to begin already the Halachos. Okay, Tachanan we begin omitting starting from today by Mincha. We do not say Tachanan until the end of Chanukah. As soon as Chanukah is over, we do say it. We also avoid, just like we don't say Tachanan, we avoid visiting cemeteries throughout Chanukah. And therefore, someone who has a shloshim or a yahrzeit or whatever, so it's better to go before Chanukah to visit the grave.
But I think you
Why
mentioned
is
that
that?
tzaddikim is okay.
Kivrei tzaddikim is not a problem.
Why is that?
Because when you visit a cemetery is a place where people have died, and it a lot of times brings up some morbid memories. You start getting tearful, you start, You're right, in today's generation, halavai that someone should shed a tear, so, we have hearts of stone, so you're saying, we don't have to worry anymore that a person will go. But no, even today, people go, they bring up morbid memories. It's not in fitting with a time of simcha where we're meant to be happy. The whole idea of not saying tachna, let me elaborate on this point a little bit. There are women who never say tachna, and this really makes no difference for them. Chanukah, not Chanukah, for them it's Chanukah the whole year. They never say tachna. They don't say, it's a minhag amongst women, and many women do not say tachna. Anytime. Not saying tachna is a result of a certain level that the day is experiencing. It's not that, that it's in and of itself a custom, we just don't say tachna. On the day the tachna isn't said, it means that this is a day of certain closeness, a certain affection that Hashem shows with us. And just like in a relationship, there's time to bring up our sins, there's times to bring up our misdeeds, and there's times not to bring it up. The person is sitting, having a joyous, anniversary dinner. Now is not the time to bring up misdeeds. Bring up the misdeeds. The misdeeds is, you need to have a private time, have a scheduled appointment, and discuss it. Not every time. So sometimes you bring up misdeeds in improper times. It brings kpedus. It's not healthy. And so too with the Eibishter. It's not healthy to recite Tachanun in days of the special closeness from Hashem that shines. And Chanukah is one of them. And therefore, it's not just Tachanun misdeeds that we're bringing up. Any idea of morbid, going out for your anniversary and you're all upset. What is that going to help? So the person shouldn't go to cemeteries and bring up a negative mood during the time of Chanukah. This is what this brought down. To the point that someone once, but regarding Yutas Kislev, someone once wrote to the Rabbi that they don't like this new innovation of Chassidim that don't say Tachanun Yutas Kislev. In their shul, they want to say Tachanun. And the Rebbe wrote to him a very strong letter, basically saying that, first of all, Halachos, the Chassidim have to celebrate their Rebbe's release, etc. But basically saying that on the day the Tachanun is not said, if a person says Tachanun, it can cause him physical damage. It can cause him danger for himself. And therefore, a person has to be very careful not to offend the tzaddik or not to offend the Eibishter during this time. And therefore, we specifically do not say Tachanun. We do not bring up anything morbid. And for this, we understand that Chanukah is a time of joy, whether physical joy or spiritual is another question, but it's a time of joy. It's not a time to bring up sadness. We find also different segulas, which we already mentioned now, related to Chanukah, such as it's a time for children, where Bnei Yisachar brings down that many women who were barren, this was an auspicious time for them to conceive during Chanukah. That the gates of Tshuva are still open. It's a very auspicious time. There's a certain closeness that Hashem shows, similar to the time of Elul. So writes Tamim and Hag in the name of David, Mevimnov in the name of the Bnei Yisachar. So it's a very auspicious moment. Nonetheless, together with that, we shouldn't know of such things. But Avelis doesn't end on Chanukah. Anyone who Chas v'Shalom is in mourning of one of the 7 relatives, business continues as usual. All the laws of mourning continue like always. Is there a mitzvah to have festive meals on Chanukah, or is it like a regular weekday? So this was a major debate between the woman and the men. I'm joking. Between the Rishayim.
And the men
amongst the Rishayim.
And the men went for the same old stuff, right?
Which is? Some Rishayim say it's a different perspective how to look at Chanukah, or a different perspective, what is the main reason of the commemoration of Chanukah. I said earlier 3 reasons of celebration. Which is the main? So, some Rishonim say the main idea of Chanukah is that we were under spiritual oppression. Our religion connected to God was under oppression, was under persecution. We won, so let's celebrate it in that method in a spiritual way, which is light candles, learn Torah, celebrate it by doing spiritual things. Say Hallel, not physical meals. Now is not a time for physical partying. Now is a time for a spiritual celebration, celebrating a spiritual victory. It was symbolic of a spiritual victory. So they say there's absolutely no need to have these lavish meals, and they're Seudas Rishus. They're not even considered Seudas Mitzvah. They're a Seudah of the stomach, not for the Mitzvah. Other Rishonim, however, say, relax. It's true, nonetheless, that there is an aspect, and we don't negate that, of a spiritual celebration, saying Hallel, lighting candles, and celebrating the symbolism that we remain connected with God and that Jewish religion was victorious. But nonetheless, when the temple became rededicated, that's a time of physical celebration. Shlomo HaMelech didn't have this attitude when he dedicated the Mikdash on Yom Kippur. He didn't say, guys, the Mikdash is all about spirituality, so now we're going to fast for 2 days. No, he said, even today, Yom Kippur, we're all going to eat and celebrate and rejoice. So to here. Therefore, we should have meals and we should rejoice. So we have a machlekes amongst Rishonim. So what do? So it's as follows. The Rama writes that one should have celebratory meals, and that is the custom, meaning the second opinion. We do have special meals that cover Chanukah more than a normal day. It should be extra extravagant than normally done. But the meal should be filled with the Torah and with spiritual inspiration. And then even the first opinion will join the band and join us for our meal, because they also agree that you're turning into a spiritual event.
Can I ask you, what about this idea of the front latkes and the front this and that? Is that...
Next. Menu. That's already not. First I discussed having big meals. Now we're going to go into the menus, right?
I'm in the wrong order.
The poskim record, and this is also was mentioned by the Rabbi, that one should have a special meal every day of Chanukah. We have 8 days of Chanukah, so we have special meals on every day of Chanukah. It doesn't say twice a day, but at least once a day you should have a special meal. Those who want to be Mahadir have twice a day, no problem. That's 8 days worth of special meals. That's 16 meals. You got to get yourself or your husband an admission to the Cheder Kosher for the rest of the month. The workout room.
The gym.
The gym. It's brought down the following: that being that on Shabbos, anyways, we're supposed to have a festive meal, and being that on Rosh Chodesh, we're anyways supposed to have a festive meal. This year we have 2 days of Rosh Chodesh, so it wouldn't suffice to just have a regular festive meal, which we would anyways have for Rosh Chodesh and Shabbos. So therefore, the poskim record, the Ben Ish Chai and others, that this Shabbos Rosh Chodesh one has to have a special meal. Special for Shabbos, like usual Shabbos. Extra special for Rosh Chodesh, and extra special for Chanukah. So what does this translate into? Caviar. What does this translate into?
The man has to help cook.
That's what it translates into?
Yeah.
That's special for the wife. What about for the husband?
Special chef, you know.
He has an opportunity to
The husband, by the way, should always help
cook what
cook
he
for
wants
Shabbos. We did this in our Shabbos course. He has a chiyuv d'maisa. Order abundance, and machlekes, but he has an absolute obligation to help with Shabbos, that's for sure. And prepare the food he likes the most. That's what's brought down in Al Together. But, okay, so everyone should think and brainstorm to make the Shabbos and Rosh Chodesh meal next day extra special, have something in addition to the regular Chanukah meal that they have. Regarding the menu, so what we do have clearly brought in the Payim is that it's customary, and one should do so, to eat dairy foods on Chanukah, celebrating that the occurrence that happened with Yehudis. Is what I said before. It does find itself in Halacha, even the story of Yehudis, even though somehow it made it out of Megillas Antiochus, that she killed the enemy general with dairy. She learned from, who did she learn from? Yael. Very good. So she had a good ancestor. I don't know if they were related, but she had someone to, well, they're not related because they were Kohanim, and she was from... Oh, they are related. Yeah, they are family. Yael was from Yisrael.
What did you add?
Yisrael.
Same thing.
General.
Fed him cheese, wine, and chopped off his head. They're all doing the same thing. just many years earlier, obviously. She killed Eglain, but they are family if you think about it. She killed, Sisera. Not Eglain, Sisera. Eglain someone else killed. Sisera, she was from Yisrael, and Kayanim come from Aaron. Okay, they're a little related. Okay, we can connect it. Tough.
I will say that now we have stones of hearts of stone.
Hearts of some people. Yeah.
Do them.
It's Nismatu halavavis, it says. Yeah. Fasting. It's forbidden to fast, obviously, on Chanukah. That's according to all opinions, even those who say it's a spiritual time. It's not a spiritual time for fasting. We do not fast. Even a groom and bride that are getting married during Chanukah do not fast on the day of their wedding. So where does the eating all the oily foods come from? Before we get to that, do you have to wash for the meal or drink wine or eat meat? The answer is no. There is no obligation to do so. No place can make such a mention. Some place can try to imply that. Bottom line is that you do not have to eat meat, drink wine. But whatever you do to celebrate, it's good. Obviously, getting drunk is forbidden according to Halacha. It's a big problem, so that would not be allowed. But to drink a little bit of wine is not a problem. So latkes and sufganiot. The connection is very simple. The Jewish people, the miracle that happened with the Jewish people at the time was with oil, and therefore we eat oily foods. We don't have a record of this minhag recorded in the classical sources. Our first mention that we know of it is in a letter written by Rabbi Maimon. Anyone know who he was? Father of the Rambam, Maimonides. Maimonides means the son of Maimon, so this is the Maimon of that, who we always refer to the son of Maimon. This is the father Maimon. He was a Rav in Spain before the Rambam became famous, and he, right after Chanukah, I want to stop this minhag. I added that part, but he says I want to stop the minhag. I want to stop this minhag of eating all these oily foods. You know, they're bad for your health. They're full of calories, etc. So the Rambam's father writes back that while there is no source for this custom, nonetheless, meaning the Poskim in his time, the Goldstein, Talmud, Rabbi Savarai, nobody mentions it. Nonetheless, this is the Jewish custom, and dating back many generations. What he writes, dating back many generations. So maybe since the time of the Chanukah miracle, this went on. Meaning, the first Chanukah, the bakeries already went out and were already selling sufganiot and latkes right after the miracle. So the Rambam's father writes that every Jewish custom must be cherished, and therefore one shouldn't nullify this. And it was the actual wording there is sufganiot, sufganin. That's the wording there. And he writes that people should eat sufganin on Chanukah, but you can do it with olive oil. You don't have to do it with the most fattiest. What's that?
Donuts.
Oh, donuts. Sufganiot. So it's called sufganiot from the word of sofeg because it's like a sponge and it absorbs all that oil.
You have to be mixed.
And we know that the Alter Rebbe and other Chabad Rebbeim were accustomed to have a family event, Chanukah party, which they called the latke event. So they had latkes, which of course are fried. No one makes baked latkes; it's fried latkes, and so they also celebrated this idea. Obviously, you do not have to eat. You know, there's not a certain amount you have to eat each day. You don't have to eat one a day, and all that stuff. All that is called bakery halachas or treasury halachas. That has nothing to do with Jewish halachas. A few related halachas to sufganiot. First one, number one, kashrus. You have to make sure to get sufganiot under a good hashgacha. While many of us may be very particular, we'll only buy from a bakery that's on Badatze de Cheredis or another reliable hashgacha. Sometimes if somebody offers us and he bought it from who knows where, we don't know where he got it from, and we'll say, well, what could be the problem with sufganiot? All it is oil and basically oil and a little bit of flour. That's all it is. It's just oil and flour. What could be wrong with that? And the answer is not correct. There's many halachic issues that can be involved with sufganiot. And we'll mention a few of them. Number one, the source of the oil. Where is this oil from? What is the source of this oil? What was it made from? Was this oil used to cook something not kosher? Do you think that the bakeries are going to throw out this huge amount of oil? Who knows what they use it for beforehand? If whatever they're using does not have a proper hashgacha, then this would affect the oil that they use. Number 2, the sufganiyot itself, a flour has to be checked for bugs in Eretz Yisrael, as is the custom. Was it checked for bugs? Number 3, what is the source of the jelly inside the donut? Many jellies and jams throughout the world have glycerine as an additive placed inside of them, which many times is sourced in animal fat, which is not kosher. And then we have a problem with the cook. Was the cook Jewish? Who turned on the flame? So all of these issues is basically, there's no room to be lenient on sufganiyot and say, well, it's Chanukah, and, sufganiyot tastes really good, and I'm really hungry, and, he has kippah. It has to be from a reliable source. It shouldn't be taken. It should be from a reliable. It should be from a reliable hashgacha. Regarding the blessing, sufganiyot eternally remain as a mezainis and an alamichya. The reason for that is because they are deep fried. Since they are deep fried, therefore they can never become a maitzi. So there's no need to worry in terms of blessings. In terms of how many you eat. You can eat 5, you can eat 6. You don't have to make hamaitzi and birchas hamazon. You may need to buy a new belt, but that's a different story. The hamaitzi and birchas hamazon will not get involved here.
Is the batter can be made with water, or it has to be with juice?
It doesn't matter how the batter is made. Anything deep fried, even dough, pure dough of water and flour, is mezainis and alamichya eternally. Something can only begin to become a maitzi if it's baked. If it ain't baked, it doesn't start. If it's baked, then you start going into, what was it needed with, water, fruit juice. But if it was deep fried or cooked, which is deep fried and cooked is synonymous, that's what deep fried is. It's inside the actual oil. It's a problem. Now, another halacha, there's another kashrus which we forgot to mention without a proper hashgacha in the sufganiyot, and that many bakeries, they don't want you to receive a sufganiyah that if you light a candle on it, it'll last for 8 days. They don't want it so saturated with oil. You didn't get that?
Use the donut as your menorah.
So what do they do?
I'm not buying donuts, okay?
So what do they do to the sufganiyot to make it not be so saturated? So you have different types. You have some you open them up, and you can squeeze oil out of them. You have others that they're very dry inside. There's different additives you can put inside to make it be protected, immune to the oil. It won't be sofeg. So I don't know why it's called a sufganiyot. That's why it's called sofeg. But nonetheless, they call it the same name. But it doesn't absorb. That's called alcohol. Alcohol can have many non-kosher sources, such as yain. So this is another issue that we have with sufganiyot. It has to be paid attention. That's why we need to have it by. It has to be a good hashgacha.
It's called alcohol. What's alcohol?
One of the ingredients that they can put in to protect the sufganiyah from being a sofeg, from absorbing the oil.
Interesting.
Arak, yeah.
Is alcohol?
Arak is alcohol, yeah.
But alcohol is more expensive to put in than...
Oh, very good. So that's why they're not suspected to take the expensive alcohol. They're suspected to take the cheapest of the cheap, which is the garbage yain nesef.
Right.
So that's the problem. That's exactly the problem.
Are you talking about products that are saying that are bought, that we buy with a hechsher?
I'm explaining why a good hechsher is necessary. That's all.
What is a good hechsher? Yeah, okay.
If you have a Minhagim hechsher, most likely they know everything I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's in fact who told me. I didn't make this up. I received my information from them. So, they should be aware of all this. But with a regular Rabbanut hechsher, it could be it's fine, and it could be it's not fine. Unfortunately, unless you know for a fact what's going on, many of the Rabbanuts here in Eretz Yisrael is not that we testify that it's kosher, but that we testify that we're doing the best that we can to make sure that more Jews eat kosher food. But not that we're telling you it's kosher. We actually don't know. We're not going to go into it now. Rabbanut has tremendous limitations, and it's a great thing. We don't chas v'shalom say Rabbanut shouldn't exist. They are definitely being Mazaka Yidden, but not for Jews that want to keep kosher on a basic level.
Where's their integrity? Where's their integrity?
What do you mean? Where's their integrity?
Yeah.
They're bound by the government, by the Israeli laws. It's not their fault.
I mean, it's not their fault. They can't say
I'll give you an example. Right? We have a similar example with the OU. The OU and the OK. They OK OUD. That was a little mixed up. They give a hechsher to foods that are not Chalav Yisrael. Now, many places can hold it, it's completely treif. It's not like Chalav Yisrael is a chum. It's Halacha and Shulchan Aruch, brought in the Talmud. So even the OK, which is officially a Lubavitch-run Hashgacha organization, gives such a Hawaii, because these are products that people would anyways eat, and at least we can get rid of other ingredients which have no eterim at all. So we're not telling you it's kosher. The OK, when they give an OKD, are not saying that, everyone can eat this. People who want to follow Reb Moshe's heter, if it still applies to, they can eat it. They're more here to save as many Jews as possible from other kashrus issues. And the same thing with the Rabbanut. The Rabbanut, they are very limited in certain things. Certain things they do well, certain things they're very limited in. Their hands are tied. They don't have enough people to be, a kashrus organization needs to have a lot of people involved to be able to supervise and check out and see. And when your hands are tied behind your back and you're being told by the government, by the Supreme Court of Israel that you have to do this and you have to do that. So it's basically a hashgacha that's been infiltrated by secularism, by secular standards. So it's not always something that someone who cares, who wants to keep exact rules of kashrus can do. I unfortunately witnessed this when I was in the army, and I was in charge of kashrus of my base, and that's from an inside experience. That's how I can define it. We try our best to save people from being non-kosher. That's Rabbi.
So when you were in the army, did you have to be particularly careful about what you ate? Absolutely.
Yeah.
So do other people in the army know this as well?
Listen, it's a problem. What am I supposed to say? That's why the
mashgiach, why is it advertised?
The mashgiach in charge of the base, he has a tremendous responsibility. It's really on his shoulders.
You have to prevent people from stumbling.
100%. As soon as I went in my job, I made sure that I did the maximum that I could in my position. And we did a lot of good things. We saved from Isser Basar V'Chalav. We did tremendous things. But can I guarantee that everything was okay? Some things were beyond my control. What ingredients come in is beyond my control. If we have a problem with infestation of certain foods, it's beyond my control to prevent it from coming in. So certain things you're limited on. Certain things your hands are tied.
What happens in a hospital with kashrut?
Depends which hospital. It's the same thing. The same thing. Someone's in sakana, so is they're in sakana. They have to eat regardless. So it doesn't matter if it's kosher or not kosher. But if someone's not in sakana, they have food that's able to be brought for them from a reliable source. So that's what should be done. Now, some hospitals have mahadran hashgachos. But unfortunately, unless we're not invalidating all Rabbanut, we're just saying you have to know the situation. Who's the personal Rav of Rabbanut in charge of this place? Who is his mashgichim? If we know that they have their standards put together, if there's no issue with this product, then there's no issue. There's no problem. Okay.
Rabbi, I think you meant gelatin, not...
What I was told was glycerine, not gelatin.
Glycerine, really?
Yes. I was definitely told glycerine. I could be wrong. I don't know. It makes sense to me that glycerine would go in jam. I don't know, it just makes sense, but I could be wrong. But that's what I was told by the Hashgach company. There's a chashash of glycerine from non-kosher sources. Gelatin, I don't think they put gelatin in. Maybe they put gelatin in like jelly candies, yes. But not in jam? Gelatin and jam?
I mean,
Pectin.
Both. Maybe. Agar is from seaweed. I thought glycerin was a vegetable product. But anyway.
Also agar maybe.
Well, for our purposes, it's just semantics. Bottom line is, you may have some chazir, you may have some rabbit, you may have some animals in there in that jam. Call it gelatin, call it glycerin, call it whatever you want.
Is the law here is also that a minimum quantity doesn't need it to be told in the ingredients.
That's 100% true. In the United States, if it's under 2%, it doesn't have to be listed. It's called a trace ingredient. Less than 2% is not bottle. If it's placed as an intended ingredient, it's not bottle. So therefore, kashrus, you can never determine the kashrus of an item simply by reading the ingredients. You can't. The only way you could is if you know this is a product that is not known to have infiltration of non-kosher ingredients. There's no reason why they would do so. But unfortunately today, with the development of food technology, everything is very confusing today. Okay. Chanukah gelt. So the custom of giving Chanukah gelt is a known Jewish custom. Before that, I'll just start we'll start with a few other customs before Chanukah gelt. We'll get to the gelt soon. It is a mitzvah to rejoice on Chanukah, as we mentioned. So writes the Rambam in Hilchos Chanukah. He writes the following: the days of Chanukah are days of joy and praise. So it's a time a person has to feel simcha. Also, Megillas Tainus and Megillas Antiochus, which we read earlier, concludes with it was established for festivities and joy, like all the festivals written in the Torah. This points to the direction of those Rishonim who say you do have to have a meal, you do have to celebrate with a meal. What is not to show any sadness on Chanukah and is rather to express joy with a miracle that Hashem performed for us. And in one talk, the Rebbe once said that the joy should be even greater than on Sukkot and a similar to the joy of Simchas Torah, as both the joys are a custom which are not written in the oral law. So an advantage of a simcha that we Jews created, and Kiviyachol added to the Torah, over than what Hashem directed. This is coming from us. This is a holiday that came due to us. Regarding Torah learning, so
Excuse
a
me,
number.
When you mention motzi, we have to do motzi.
No, we don't.
When you say
A
a
mitzi,
meal,
I said earlier you don't have to.
oh, I didn't hear
It's a nice thing. It's good. Whatever you do enhances. It's great, but you don't have to. It's not an obligation. Already we see a phenomenon that existed hundreds of years ago, not just today, where for some reason people felt that Chanukah was a time of taking out cards, poker, playing cards together, spending time, doing all these different things. And the Poskim, already 500 years ago, spoke against this phenomenon and said that the joyous occasion of Chanukah must be utilized to increase in Torah learning, and that one is obligated during Chanukah to learn Torah and pray with extra concentration and add more time to his Torah learning. Let's not forget, the Yevanim desired to uproot the Torah and make people learn cards instead of learn. Right? Play cards instead of learning. So how does it make sense that to celebrate Chanukah we listen to the Greeks, we play cards instead of learning? How does that make sense? So they speak against this. I remember in yeshiva, this is not in Chabad yeshivas, when I grew up in yeshiva, this is what was done. Everybody, after lighting candles at 5, 6 o'clock, would play cards. So I thought this is a new thing. It's not a new thing. It's written already in Achreinim 400 years earlier. This is what people did.
I thought it was playing dreidels.
Cards. We would play cards.
No, we played dreidel.
Right. Yeah, dreidel you can play. It's a nice minhag. But we don't gamble. It shouldn't be played for gambling. But the idea is that the person has to know that Chanukah is an auspicious time for Torah learning. And unlike the custom today in which people use the days for games and other mundane entertainment, so writes the Shlah, HaKadosh, and the Mishnah Berurah in negation of the custom today. Tzedakah. It is customary to add in charity during Chanukah, and it has many different skulas to rectify spiritual blemishes during this time. So Chanukah is a time of giving out extra tzedakah. And that leads us to Chanukah gelt. Regarding Chanukah gelt, so we don't know exactly what the source of this is. It's a little unclear, but it is a Jewish tradition to distribute Chanukah gelt. The Rebbe gave a few directives regarding this. The Rebbe was very into Chanukah gelt. He himself would distribute Chanukah gelt towards the students of the yeshiva, and he said the following. He said that parents should distribute Chanukah gelt every single night to their children. It used to be the custom was to give once a Chanukah, but now the Rebbe said to give every night of Chanukah, and it should be distributed to all one's children, even married children. As I said before in the men's class, even if, Baruch Hashem, the mother is 119 years old, 353 days, and she has a son or daughter that's 102, 103, and should give them Chanukah gelt. The Rebbe says that the purpose of giving his Chanukah gelt is not just so the child can go use it for whatever he wants, but to motivate him to learn Torah. Now I gave you a 1 day's worth of salary, salary with an S. You can now go ahead and spend that day learning Torah. It's to give them the money and to mention to them this is to increase in Torah learning. The Rebbe said, therefore, it's proper that when the child is given the money, that this should be said to them explicitly for that purpose. On Shabbos, obviously, at Shabbos we can't give Chanukah gelt, and we also don't give the equivalent of it. Rather, we give the double amount either Friday or Sunday. And in any event, the minhag of Chabad is to give a double amount or triple amount on the 4th or 5th night of Chanukah. So in the end, it ends up that they get how many days worth of gelt? 9. They get 9 days worth. There's 8 days, and since we give 1 day double or triple, so they get 9 to 10 days. So basically, you don't have to actually shell out more money; just whatever money you're going to give divided by 9 instead of dividing it by 8.
Give double on the 4th or 5th night?
It's an interesting question. It's not explained. What we do know is that there are many different sources that attribute the 4th or 5th night, the 5th night of Chanukah, really to. It's the first night where we're now past 4, past half. It's and it's attributed to different things. That there's a special holiness to the 5th night. There's even a whole story that came out a few years ago of a miracle that happened with a girl. Maybe you heard the story. But chidus by the Rebbe, a girl wanted to a daughter of a Satmar Chassid that was going to marry a non-Jew on the 5th night of Chanukah. Anyone heard the story?
Yes, vaguely, many times.
Anyway, so it's not clear if the story actually happened or it didn't happen. It's not just.
What's the story?
What's the story? Yeah.
You can
Well,
find it.
you can find the story. It was printed in Chabad magazine in Tafshin Hay, and they later did some research, and basically they discovered the person who wrote that story. None of the names could be traced back. Nothing could be verified.
It was
And-
fiction.
Well,
We don't know.
I don't know. I don't want to say it's fiction. I don't know. I do know that there was a balagan with the story. Maybe it was only some details weren't accurate. I'm not sure. I do know that there's a little bit of balagan. But it's a great story. It doesn't matter. It's a really good story.
Even if it is
Yeah. It could be true.
So what's the story?
What's the story?
So is the grandparent supposed to give Chanukah gelt to grandchildren, or you give it to
It doesn't
the
say.
child?
It
And then,
doesn't, right. It says to the children, but you know.
Very long story.
Take half an hour to tell the
Very long story. It's a very long story.
especially if it's not true.
Okay. Tough.
I think he's applying for it.
Another thing the Rebbe mentions this was said in a talk in 5747. This is in 1987. That or 1986, I should say. The Rebbe there spoke that also spouses should request Chanukah gelt from each other. So also husbands and wife should request, and obviously they should respond with giving something to that request. Okay, we're going to just review some of the halachos of the Chanukah prayers, and we're going to go straight to practical laws of lighting the candles. The Chanukah prayers, as we already mentioned, we do not say Tachanun. We say Al Anisim starting tonight in Ma'ariv Shachris Mincha and Shemona Esrei, and in Birchas Hamazon. One who forgot to say it, if you already finished that blessing, does not repeat. You don't go back. You don't repeat Shemona Esrei, but if you remember prior to saying Baruch Atah Hashem of that blessing, then you do go back and restart from there, from Al Anisim. This is both in Birchas Hamazon and in Shemona Esrei. If you did not remember by that time, then you should add it in by Shemona Esrei before the Yul Ratzon, before the second Yul Ratzon, right before you take 3 steps back. You should say the whole thing. That's what the Rambam writes in Shulchan Aruch. If a person forgot, that's the second stop where you can make it up. If you already finished Shemona Esrei and then you remember, you can just say it. There's nothing wrong with saying it. But if you remember prior to take 3 steps back, that's where it's supposed to be said before the second Yul Ratzon Mefi is said. Also in Birchas Hamazon, you can say it by the Harachamans. Before we begin, like normally we say the Harachamon for Yantiv and Shabbos, so you can say Harachamon there and include the whole nusach of Al Hanisim. Now what happens if a person today starts a meal at 4:30, washes and has a meal, and he's benching at 5:30. Does he say Elanisim? So it's a big balagan. Just don't do it. Finish your meal before 4:30.
Or after
Bench
much.
before
Oh, you
4:30.
can't finish much later.
Or you can finish later and eat a kazayas of bread later. The problem is when you ate beforehand, didn't eat later, but you're benching already at night.
Yeah.
It's a little bit confusing.
Why should be the school? I don't understand.
You don't, you shouldn't. That's what we
I eat
say.
all the time.
No, you could if you read if you
Just keep eating.
if you these are the special additives of information you get when you purchase your copy of the book, and you can then look up and have direction of how to do these things.
Is there a phone number attached
Or look
as
it
well?
up, or look it up on the web, on my website. No, it's mutter. There's a way of doing it. You just know the halachos of what to say, how to say, etc. Okay, we're gonna quickly skip to Hallel. Hallel is the complete Hallel, as we know, for all 8 days. That was one of the main institutions of Chanukah. It's a machlekes and poskim if women are obligated in this Hallel or not. Some say forget about the if women have to daven or not. This is something totally different. This is a holiday. This is something that women took part in. They had the whole story with Yehudis. So they should be given also the obligation, saying how practically women are to recite Hallel. They do it with a bracha for Ashkenazi women, with a bracha. Okay? For Sephardi women, it's already a machlekes.
What do you mean? You mean Chabad? When you say
Ashkenazi women
is
say
Chabad?
with a bracha. Chabad is also Ashkenazi, yes.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure.
I don't know anymore. What
You can say with the bottom line is, you can even for Svardim, according to many opinions, you can say with a bracha. And you definitely should say it, because some place can hold it's machlekes place, some place can hold that women are chayiv to say Hallel, just like they're chayiv in all the other mitzvahs of Chanukah.
Like receiving it.
Based on this, we now go straight to Chanukah candles. That should have been the main of our discussion today of our class, but we're already. It's almost time to light. Okay. The mitzvah of lighting candles. So, as we know, women are obligated in lighting Hanukkah candles just like men. There is no difference between women and men in this. They have the same obligation. However, whether you're a man or a woman, the obligation is on the household. It's not on the individuals living there. It's on the household. Meaning, the owner of the home, the master of the home, in a case where there is a husband and wife, the halachic responsibility falls on the husband. He has to make sure the candles will be lit in that home. Technically, anyone can do it for him. His wife can do it for him, his kids can do it for him, or some Jew off the street can do it for him, just not a guy. But he has to make sure it gets done. As long as one candle is lit every night of Hanukkah, he's done the mitzvah. However, that's the b'diavad way of doing it. The lechatchila way of doing it, the way it's supposed to be done, is that he does not delegate anyone in his place. He does it himself. He personally lights the candles at home and fulfills the mitzvah. Once that is done, the mitzvah is fulfilled for all family members, his wife, his children at home, everyone fulfills the mitzvah. That is why in most homes the wives do not light the candles, because they've already fulfilled the mitzvah for the husband. Quite similar to Shabbos candles. I was once asked by a wife that she wants to light Hanukkah candles together with her husband. She wants, so there is no halachic issue with that. Maybe we'll get to that soon. But I just want to mention on this point over here, we're discussing that women don't usually light, the husbands light. So I said, well, just like by Shabbos candles, it's the obligation of the household. It's the husband's responsibility to make sure it gets done, but the Torah delegates it to the woman, and the husband cannot light it. He can't say, well, this week I'm going to do it. He has to let his wife do it. So too with Hanukkah candles, it's delegated to the man. So would you be okay with your husband lighting Shabbos candles every week? So, I mean, it's only a trade-off. I mean, he gets 8 days out of the year. You get 56, right? How many weeks do we have? 53. You have every Shabbos. So give him 8 days. 8 days. That's it. But not right. So it's even more, right? But nonetheless, Minhagim, it's as follows. There's a famous debate amongst the Rishonim between the Rambam and Tosfos regarding how do you do the Mahadran mitzvah, the super Jew mitzvah? The basic mitzvah, everyone agrees. 1 candle per home, everyone's yaitse. There's no argument on that. Everyone's agreeing with that. The question is there a reason, is there a matter of scrupulousness involved in every member of the family lighting an individual candle? And that's a dispute in Rishonim of how to understand the Talmudic statement in Gemara and Shabbos. The Rambam understands it to mean that if you want to do what we're going to call super Jew, Mahadran, Mina Mahadran, the best of the best, everyone in the house should be lighting candles. So everyone lights, the boys, and seemingly also the girls and the wives. Tosfos, however, holds that no, super Jew, Mahadran, Mina Mahadran, is that only one person lights, and he lights one more every night. But if everyone lights, you just messed up. You just did yourself. You're not super Jew anymore. You're doing basic. It's a major machlekes between the Rambam and Tosfos, which very interesting. We say this every year. We have here a switch of opinions. Ashkenazim follow the Rambam. Sephardim follow Tosfos. There's a switch here. And so therefore, Sephardim are accustomed that nobody in the house other than the father of the home lights candles. Ashkenazim are accustomed that even if the father lights, all the sons, the male children light. What happened to the females here? So, technically, if you're going like the Rambam, everyone in the family should light. It doesn't make a difference in terms of gender. Women are chayiv in lighting Chanukah just like men. If there's no man in the house, just a woman, either she's single, she's before getting married, or post, etc., or she's away. Or the husband's away. She has an obligation to light Chanukah candles. A mitzvah mid'Rabbanan. She's just like the man. She says a bracha. She lights, etc. She has to light. So why here are we suddenly excluding the women? So we don't know exactly why, but it is recorded in Poskim that it's not customary for women to do so. And some of the reasons suggested is because the wife didn't feel comfortable. This is interesting. Lighting instead of in addition to her husband, that's making like an emphasis that we're separate entities. No, husband and wife are one entity. We're one and the same. Ishta kagufa. So it's very unromantic for the wife to light on her own. Now, if the wife's not going to light, the daughters are going to light, it's going to be offensive to the mother. Therefore, none of the girls at home lit. This was the old age custom. If someone wants to really, it's really negel and nafsha, it's really, means very much to them, and they're going to have a difficulty handling Chanukah if they don't light their candles, then no problem, go ahead. Your Ashkenazi, follow the Mahadran and Mahadran, you can light, we won't give you any issues. Ideally, the girls don't light, but once again, it's not us from Minhagim. They could if they want to.
So I have a question. Have I got a minute?
Yeah.
Some people light outside in a protective box, say. If it rains, are you meant to sit for half an hour? What's the time of watching the candles? You can watch them inside.
From the letter of the law, the obligation is fulfilled regardless whether you sit there or not. So long as the candles you lit the candles and they're able to last a half hour after nightfall, it's kosher. However, the custom is to sit near the candles for a half hour if you're able to. Erev Shabbos we don't do it because we're busy, but normally we sit by a half hour. But the custom of jury is mainly to light inside the house. Some light outside, but the main custom today is to light inside. When I say today, I mean the last 1,000 years. It's light inside the house, not outside the house.
But there's so where do you light near the door?
Okay, 1 second. I just want to mention, based on what we already explained, that women are ideally obligated, so we have to remember that if the husband is going to be out of town, he's not going to be in the home for one night of Chanukah, the obligation falls on the wife, on the mother of the home. She has to light Chanukah candles for the family. If she might see her husband or not is a different story. The main thing is that the husband will also light in addition and have in mind not to be Yitzit with her. This is very pertinent too when we have children already who are older, they're going away, let's say, they're not staying in their father's or mother's home for the whole Chanukah, even if they go away for one night, what's happening that night? Are they Yitzit or not? So the best thing is, in such a situation, is for them to simply, whether they're a girl or a boy, okay, to either light on their own, that's if a boy or Ashkenaz, follow that custom of Mahadran, everyone lights on their own regardless, so for the boys, for the men, it's regardless they're going to be lighting, and have in mind not to be Yitzit with the home lighting in their house. And for the girls, if they don't feel comfortable lighting their own menorah, at the very least, they have to participate in the lighting of the their host, assuming they have one, which means, let's say they're staying in someone's house, then they should acquire some of the oil, lift it up a tefach, have him give them a shekel. You acquire some of the oil that's being lit, so you're participating in the mitzvah. You don't have to actually be there, by the way, minadin. The best thing is to be there to avoid other issues, but even if you weren't there, you're still yay. So that's always the case. Whenever you have your family or your paid host that is lighting for you, even if you weren't there, you're yaitz. Nonetheless, the best thing is to try to be there because of the blessing. Some opinions say the bracha of Shas Nisim has nothing to do with the lighting. It's for anyone who sees the menorah lighting. So if you weren't there, you didn't hear it. Next time you see a menorah lighting, let's say you're walking the street, you see some guy's menorah, some place can say, you have to now say the bracha. In order to avoid this problem, you should try to be by either that lighting or any lighting. So you hear the blessings, you hear the bracha of Shas Nisim. So in a case where a girl's, let's say, staying by herself for the night, or she's going with a group of friends to a hotel, or shlichus, but they're not with a host, then they should light their own menorah lighting. They should all join together, buy oil together and light. They cannot rely on their family at home. This is for Ashkenazim. For Sfardim, they follow an approach and understanding in the Paiskin that so long as you're ideally supported by your family at home, you're yetzer with them, with their lighting, even if you're staying somewhere else. And so therefore by them, they don't really require a person to go ahead and light an additional candle or join the lighting of another. Regarding your question, so where do we light? We light inside the home. Inside the home, the custom is, as writes the Ramah, to light opposite the mezuzah. So we're surrounded by mitzvahs. Nonetheless, there are people who are accustomed, like the Mishnah and Magen Avram, to light by a window in order to also gain the advantage of Persumei Nisa. These are different customs. Once again, Chabad, Ramah follow the door. Others follow the window. You can only follow the window custom if it's not 20 amos above from the ground. If you live in a high-rise building, then you cannot light by the window. You have to light by an area that it's Persumei Nisa for you in your house and for your family.
Why? How high is that?
20 amos, well, if 1 amma is 49 centimeters, so we're going to be doing 49 centimeters times 20, which would get us to, right, so that gets us to 1,000 centimeters, that's 10 meters.
10 meters.
That's not very high. What is it, like 4th floor? 3rd floor, 4th floor? Between, I would say, the 3rd and 5th floor.
So I have a situation where the apartment buildings are below the street level.
Right, so police can deal with that question in mountainous areas, or let's say, not just mountainous areas, let's say, any area where you have many buildings, so if it's not Persumei Nisa for people on the street, you have people in the opposite buildings all see it.
Right.
So it's discussed there. The best thing is to, listen, if the area of the window is also visible to you,
Right.
you're not using a menorah that blocks. Some menorahs have like a back that blocks the light. I mean, you can only see the light from one direction, then yes, it should be pointed to you. But if you can see it from both sides, then you get the best of both worlds.
I always light by the door, but then it occurred to me, if I lit the window, then the people, everyone outside can see it.
You're right, but the custom, the Ramah writes is to light by the door inside.
Okay.
So if that's the custom you did, why should you change from the Ramah's custom?
What's his custom?
The Ramah is for all Ashkenazim. Ashkenazim yetz b'yad Ramah. This is our basic.
I just thought maybe more people should see it.
You're touching on the very sensitive point that the Bnei Yisachar talks about, and that's as follows. We have a battle here that's going on in the Halacha Minhagim of what's the main thing, the outside or the inside? What's the main thing, family or the outside world? When we talk about shlichus, where's the main shlichus? Is the main shlichus towards your husband, your wife, your children, or is the main shlichus towards the outside world? And so one point is emphasizing the main thing is the outside. Persumei Nisa, to spread to the outside. You light at night, you light outside your door. Everyone agrees according to Talmudic law you were supposed to light outside. So you choose the window. On the other hand, when you light by the window, you're lacking the surrounding of mitzvahs. When you walk through, you're lacking the inner effect.
Yeah. So
the Bnei Yisachar writes like this. In times of galus, we're not so capable of affecting the outside. We have to mainly focus on the inside. And while this sounds like the antithesis of Chabad philosophy, well, it's all about shlichus going out, the Rebbe did use this thought in a talk when he explained the halacha that we find, if you don't have enough money to buy Chanukah candles or Shabbos candles, you must precede them by Shabbos candles, as Shalom Bayis. That's the Gemara says that Shalom Bayis comes before Pesume Nisa. Having to, the Rebbe explains it in Avodas Hashem, affecting your own home precedes affecting the outside. If you don't have time to do both, you have to precede your own home. Anyways, we have a Friedrich and Chanukah.
I am under 10 meters.
If anybody wants,
This is for sale. We have a but I like the order that we have to do from left to right. In the outside, I will leave them.
Right.
Is that the problem?
Because you're turning it around. Are you turning it around? How do you do it? Or you're viewing it right to left.
Is that the
It's not a problem. The question is, how should it be done? It's either lighting it.
someone's going to teach me how to do it.
So, right, I hear you. There's no room to get in between the window and the menorah.
What do you mean?
I'm saying, if you could get in between the window and the menorah, then it would be facing, you'd be like one on the outside.
You mean I can take the whole thing and turn it?
Let's say this is the window, right? Yeah. So if I put a chair like this by the window, like this.
I don't need to do that. The window, I'm doing it on the window.
I understand. So yeah, it's
Can I turn it?
Can you turn it around? Yes, you could turn it.
I don't see any books inside.
It's on the. I'll show you.
And she's got room in her house. Can you turn it up?
What?
Turn it up. You're going to turn house and bake.
Are you? Are you going to
Yes.